The call ended at 6:12 a.m. The last ambulance rolled away from the smoldering hillside in Los Angeles County. Rachel Lynn, 33, stood in the ash-streaked morning pulling off her gloves with fingers still shaking from adrenaline. A 5-car pileup had collapsed into a brush fire. She and her team had evacuated 12 people. 2 critical, 1 dead. She should have been thinking about the report, or breakfast, or sleep. But all she could think about was a text that hadn't come. No update. No picture. No Ellie slept okay. Nothing. She tapped her phone again. Still no signal in the hills. No messages when the LTE bar blinked back on near the station. Nothing in WhatsApp iMessage or the family group chat titled Lynn Ladies. Odd. Her mother usually sent a whole album if Ellie sneezed. Ellie was 9, fierce, quiet, smarter than Rachel ever admitted out loud. And this was the first time in 6 months Rachel had asked for overnight help. 3 shifts in a row, fire response, no backup childcare. So she called her parents in San Jose, dropped Ellie off on Monday, hugged her goodbye, packed her bunny backpack, left instructions, snacks, meds, emergency contacts, all printed, labeled, color-coded. Her mother, ever the ex-school principal, had waved off the checklist. "We've done this before, Rachel. Go be a hero." But this morning when Rachel texted finishing, "On my way to get Ellie. Love you guys." There was no reply. She called, straight to voicemail, called again, left a message, texted Ivy, her younger sister. Nothing. It wasn't until Rachel pulled up in front of her parents' house 3 hours later, car smelling like ash and old coffee, that unease turned into dread. The curtains were closed. The Prius and SUV were gone. She rang the bell, knocked, called again, still nothing. She used the emergency key hidden behind the fake garden rock. Inside was clean, empty, too quiet. And then on the kitchen counter, a single sheet of lined paper, with her mother's familiar, elegant handwriting. "Rachel, Ari, sweetie, we just couldn't manage. We arranged temporary placement through proper channels. You can contact Child Protective Services to get Ellie back. Mom and Dad." She stood there unmoving while her heart sank beneath the linoleum. Temporary placement. Ellie was in the foster system. Because her family couldn't manage, Rachel didn't scream. Didn't break anything. She just took a picture of the note, then sat down at the table, opened her phone, and began to build the storm. The CPS hotline picked up after 22 minutes on hold. Rachel had already scanned the note, already reread it 5 times. She had the strange urge to correct its grammar, anything to keep from thinking about what it meant. "Hello, this is Child Protective Services, Southern District. How can I help you? My name is Rachel Lynn," she said calmly. Too calmly. "I believe my daughter Ellie Lynn was placed in emergency foster care without my consent." The woman on the other end hesitated. "Can you confirm her date of birth and the name of the reporting guardians?" Rachel gave both. Silence followed, the kind that vibrates in the bones. "Yes," the voice said finally. "We do have Ellie Lynn in our system, placed yesterday evening. The report was filed by Gerald and Margaret Lynn, my parents. They identified themselves as Ellie's primary guardians facing a personal emergency. The intake officer approved temporary placement." Rachel blinked hard. "They're not her guardians," she said. "They were babysitting for 72 hours while I worked 3 emergency shifts as a paramedic. I have full legal custody. There was no emergency." "Ms. Lynn, I understand this is upsetting. Let me transfer you to a caseworker, please hold." Rachel didn't respond. The hold music was piano jazz, bright and maddening. She stood in the middle of her parents' kitchen, staring at the lavender mug that said, "World's Best Grandma," sitting by the sink. 2 hours later, she was sitting across from a woman named Denise, a CPS officer with cropped silver hair and tired eyes. They met at the district office where Ellie had been processed the night before. "Ellie is safe," Denise said first. "She's with a certified emergency family. Good people, trained." She was quiet but calm. "She must have been terrified," Rachel replied. "She was, But she asked if her mom knew. That was her first question. Rachel clenched her jaw. They told her I wasn't coming back, didn't they? Denise hesitated. According to the intake report, your parents stated you were unavailable indefinitely, that there was no reliable contact window. I sent them my shift schedule. I told them exactly when I'd be back. I believe you. Rachel exhaled shakily. May I see her? We're arranging a supervised visit for this afternoon. We'll also begin expedited release back to you since you have full custody. The paperwork should be straightforward, but… Rachel raised an eyebrow. There will be an internal review. Your parents knowingly misrepresented themselves. It's considered custodial interference. Rachel nodded slowly. That word again. Interference. Not a mistake. Not forgetfulness. Deliberate. Outside the CPS office, she sat in her car. Hands on the wheel, engine off. She didn't call her parents. She didn't call Ivy. Instead, she opened Instagram and typed in her sister's handle. What she saw drained the last warmth from her skin. At Ivy Teaches, Smiles had posted a carousel of photos. Caption surprise family trip. Vietnam bound with the best grandparents ever, Jackson and Mia's first international adventure. Can't wait to explore the Mekong #family. First #blessed #Lin legacy. Rachel stared at the photos. Her parents smiling on a plane. Her niece and nephew in matching bucket hats. The check-in tag LAX, Ho Chi Minh City. Time stamped yesterday evening. Roughly the same time, Ellie was handed off to strangers. She didn't cry. She opened her notes app and started documenting everything. The boarding photo was posted at 6:08 p.m. The airline tag showed flight VJ852, non-stop to Ho Chi Minh City. The timestamp matched exactly with the CPS intake log. 6:12 p.m. Ellie Lynn, age 9, placed into emergency care. Rachel zoomed in on the corner of the image. Gate 134, Tom Bradley International Terminal. Her parents stood beaming, each wheeling a child-sized suitcase. No sign of Ellie. Of course not. She went methodical. A spreadsheet. Timeline in column A. Screenshot file names in column B. Violations in column C. She logged the exact hour Ellie was left with CPS. The hour Ivy tagged their location at LAX. A text Ivy had sent her 3 days earlier. Wish you could take a break like mom and dad. They deserve it. A voicemail from her mom saved 2 weeks ago. Ivy's planning a trip, and we might join, depending on Lily's schedule. No mention of Ellie. No plan to warn her. They'd made a choice, a clean break, and they had done it with matching sun hats and smoothie selfies. Rachel met with CPS again that afternoon. Denise, the caseworker, had Ellie waiting in a quiet visitation room. The moment Rachel stepped through the door, Ellie ran into her arms with a gasp, like she'd been underwater for days. Mom, she whispered. You came. Of course I did, Rachel said, fighting to hold her voice steady. No one takes you away from me. Ever. Back in Denise's office, paperwork was moving fast. We'll release Ellie back into your care by tomorrow morning, she said. We'll need signatures, a quick home check, but it's clear the placement wasn't due to neglect or danger. Rachel nodded. I want the full intake file. You'll have it by 5 p.m. She leaned in. Also, I need to file a report. Denise looked at her. You're planning to press charges? I'm planning, Rachel said, to make sure no one ever calls them trusted family again. That evening, she called a friend. Lisa Tran, immigration attorney and policy consultant. She didn't ask for comfort. She asked for clarity. If they lied about guardianship and left the country, what are the legal implications? Lisa paused. Depends. Did they leave behind any documentation suggesting abandonment? They left a note. No phone, no plan. Just, sorry, sweetie. Lisa whistled. That might qualify as custodial interference and potentially neglect, especially if child welfare believes they were avoiding legal responsibility. Rachel hesitated. Would international law get involved If they lied to get out of the country while dodging child welfare scrutiny? Possibly. Especially if a formal complaint is filed before they return. Rachel opened the photos again, the one of Ivy holding a coconut drink. Caption, "Back to our roots, so grateful." Mom and Dad made this trip happen. They didn't make this trip happen, Rachel muttered. They made a little girl disappear so they could pose in paradise. Lisa sighed. You ready for the fallout? I'm not yelling, Rachel said. I'm documenting. She opened a new note. Titled it Vietnam, What They Thought I Wouldn't Do First Line Day 1. Filed official report with CPS. Day 2, police referral initiated. She didn't scream. She didn't plead. She just sharpened her facts like a blade. Rachel didn't cry in the shower. She filed a formal CPS statement. She didn't call Ivy. She emailed Officer Jaime Mendoza, the precinct liaison for family-based custody cases. Subject line emergency custody interference. Cross-border flight involved. She didn't text her parents. She forwarded Lisa's email to the district attorney's intake desk. By noon the next day, the whisper report was no longer a whisper. It was a file. It had timestamps. It had screenshots. It had a signature. Detective Mendoza met her at the precinct, a man in his 50s, with sharp eyes and the steady calm of someone who had seen worse and still expected better. You kept a clean trail, he said, flipping through her folder. We like that. I kept the truth, Rachel replied. They built the trail, he nodded. I have airport records, social posts, the original note, and the CPS timeline. I have their message pretending to be unavailable for care, but then posting from LAX with mojitos. Mendoza raised an eyebrow. Good. Because this crosses two boundaries, legal custody and international exit with intent to deceive. Rachel didn't flinch. We can notify CBP and the consulate in Vietnam, he continued. Depending on how long they're gone, they may face a blocked re-entry or interrogation upon landing. Do it, Rachel said. They want family drama. I'll give them federal code. Meanwhile, Ellie had stopped asking if her grandparents were coming back. She started asking harder things. Was I hard to love? Did I do something wrong? Would you have left me too if they told you to go? Rachel answered the only way she knew how. No, then she bought a voice recorder. Let Ellie speak into it whenever the questions came at night, and Rachel wasn't awake to answer. She transcribed every word. It would be Exhibit D if necessary. On day 3, the consulate emailed Lisa. Rachel Lynn's formal complaint accepted. Vietnamese border authorities notified. Cooperation with U.S. law enforcement confirmed. Attached was an internal memo from Tan Son Nhut Immigration Control Flight, VJ852 Re-Entry Plan, March 19th. Subject Gerald Lynn Margaret Lynn, Ivy Chen. Referral filed for secondary questioning upon landing. Rachel didn't smile, but she felt something shift, a click, a reset. That night, Ivy texted for the first time since it all began. Hey Rach, just landed in Hanoi. Ellie, okay, Mom was a wreck at the airport, LOL, you good. Rachel stared at the screen, then typed Ellie safe. You'll hear from the authorities before you hear from me. She hit send, muted the thread, and added the screenshot to the folder. March 19th, 07:42 a.m., local time, Ho Chi Minh City. Gate 17 at Tan Son Nhut International Airport buzzed with early arrivals, jet-lagged tourists, business travelers, a toddler in a panda hoodie chasing a pigeon. Nothing looked unusual. Then came the overhead call, Mr. Gerald Lynn, Mrs. Margaret Lynn, and Ms. Ivy Chen. Please report to the nearest immigration officer. Immediately. It took exactly 90 seconds for the murmurs to start. Another 30 for airport security to converge. They were pulled aside near customs, just as Ivy was pulling up a TikTok filter. Later, the official report would describe them as visibly confused, resistant, and increasingly agitated. Gerald had tried to assert it was all a misunderstanding. Margaret asked if this would affect their hotel transfer. Ivy demanded to know why her vacation with kids was being ruined over Rachel's usual drama, but the officer only repeated calmly, You've been flagged for custodial interference in an active international child welfare case. You are not under arrest, but you are under review. They were escorted to a neutral holding area. Luggage still untouched, passports quietly collected. Back in California, Rachel sat at her kitchen table in silence. A text from Lisa appeared. They were pulled at arrival. Interrogation in process. CBP will mirror report on U.S. re-entry. Rachel stared at the screen, then locked the phone. Across the room, Ellie sat on the couch drawing galaxies on printer paper, one planet per grandparent. Do you want to talk about it? Rachel asked. Ellie looked up, then back at her stars. No, I want to name the asteroid belt after Grandma. Rachel smiled gently. That's fair. That afternoon, Ivy called. 4 missed calls, then voicemail. Rachel, this is insane. We're being treated like criminals. They pulled us out of the customs line. In front of everyone, Mom cried. Jackson got scared. Are you happy now? Over a babysitting miscommunication. Rachel didn't respond. She just forwarded the voicemail to Mendoza, then added the file to her master folder. The next day, Rachel received an email from Vietnam's Ministry of Public Security subjects released with conditions, warned of international legal obligations. Exit note filed. Will notify upon departure and re-entry attempts. Attached 3 blurry stills from the airport CCTV footage. One frame showed her mother crying into a tissue, another her father pointing at the officer, and the last one, Ivy, arms crossed, head shaking, looked straight at the camera. Rachel saved the images, didn't share them. She wasn't here for public humiliation. She was here to remind them you don't get to leave a child behind and call it logistics. The story could have ended there, but it didn't, because 3 days later, a card arrived in Rachel's mailbox. No return address. Inside was a folded note, simple handwritten. We were overwhelmed. We never thought you'd react like this. Mom. Rachel closed the card, slid it into the folder labeled, not evidence, just memory, then walked into Ellie's room, sat beside her daughter and said, Want to talk about asteroids again? Ellie looked up and nodded. Let's name a big one after Grandpa. Rachel smiled. And then let's blow it up. It came just after dinner, 3 days after the report, 2 days after the consulate alert, and 1 day after the apology card arrived. Ellie had been quiet all evening, eating mac and cheese with one elbow propped on the table like she was older than she was. She didn't ask about Grandma, or Vietnam, or Ivy. Rachel watched her fold her napkin 3 times before speaking. Mom, Ellie said finally without looking up. Yeah, sweetie, was I hard to love? Rachel froze. Ellie's voice was so steady it didn't sound like a question, it sounded like a conclusion. Rachel set her fork down, carefully, like anything louder might break something already cracked. Why would you think that? She asked, her voice softer than breath. Ellie shrugged, still not meeting her eyes. Grandma said, Sometimes mommies leave because they're tired. And I'm kinda a lot. So I wondered if maybe you would too, if you had to pick. Rachel inhaled sharply. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She stood up, walked around the table, and knelt beside her daughter's chair. You listen to me, she said, steady but clear. You are not too much. You are not hard to love. You are my exact person. Ellie's eyes welled up finally. But they left me, like I was extra luggage. Jackson and Mia got the window seat and I got the paperwork. Rachel felt something inside her recoil. She couldn't protect Ellie from the whole world, but she could give her the vocabulary to fight back. They were wrong, Rachel said. You hear me, not just bad decision wrong. They were dangerous wrong. But that's not about you. That's about their weakness. Ellie blinked. Then why do I feel like the one who did something wrong? Rachel didn't have a clean answer. So instead she stood up, walked into her room and returned with a folder. Not the CPS file, not the photos, but a scrapbook. One she'd made during nursing school when Ellie was born. She flipped it open, pointed. This is the night I slept 2 hours in a linen closet just so I could rock you through a fever. This is the day I chased down a pediatrician who wouldn't listen to me. This she tapped a wrinkled paper is your first brave talk drawing. The one where you said, I'm scared of elevators, but I'll try anyway. Ellie smiled just a little. You think any of that is hard to love? Rachel asked. No, Ellie whispered. Then don't you dare let anyone repurpose your story like it's about their convenience. That night, Rachel heard Ellie speaking softly into her voice recorder again. She didn't interrupt. Later, when Ellie fell asleep, Rachel played the tape. I am not hard to love, Ellie said quietly. I am not extra luggage. I am not a note on a kitchen counter. I am the girl my mom came back for. Rachel sat there in the hallway, eyes closed, letting that truth bloom in the dark. They came back 10 days later, no parade, no apology press conference, just a quiet re-entry through LAX after immigration finished processing. Rachel didn't bother checking the flight logs. Lisa forwarded the re-entry confirmation. That was enough. Ivy tried calling, left a voicemail. We're back. Can we meet? I think we should talk face to face, for Ellie's sake. Rachel didn't respond. Instead, she mailed a certified envelope. Inside, a formal notice. Effective immediately, all communication regarding Eleanor Lynn must be directed through legal representation. No unsupervised contact. No assumptions of guardianship. This is not revenge. This is structure. She didn't sign it with love. She signed it as Rachel Lynn EMTIC, sole legal guardian. The world didn't explode. No one collapsed. The sun kept rising, but the structure held. Rachel scheduled Ellie's therapy sessions, updated her emergency contacts, moved her parents' numbers into a folder labeled Do Not Answer. Ellie returned to school the following Monday. Ms. Carter, her teacher, pulled Rachel aside. She seems firmer, she said, like a kid who's decided she'll write her own ending. Rachel smiled. She is. A month passed. No lawsuits, no angry relatives showing up at the door, just silence. And silence, Rachel had learned, was also a tool. She used it to build. They started Saturday anti-vacation days inside joke name. No airports, no lies, just backyard tents and grilled cheese on the porch. Ellie named their Wi-Fi network Better Family Network. And Rachel didn't change it. One afternoon, Rachel asked Ellie, Do you want to write them? Ellie paused, then said, No, I already did. She opened her notebook and read aloud. Dear Grandma and Grandpa, I am not your backup plan. I am not the one you forgot. I am the girl you didn't pick, and that's okay, because now I get to choose too. Rachel didn't add anything, didn't suggest edits, just closed the notebook and said, That's the final draft. Because the story didn't end with court dates or tearful reunions, it ended with one child drawing constellations that didn't include the people who left her, and one mother learning that silence can be louder than screaming when it comes with action boundary, and love that never had to raise its voice.